I was sent to Portsmouth in 1994, 20 years ago, and I loved it. So I engineered my way into coming here all of the time and went to university. I did international relations and politics because I wanted to do counter-terrorism, out of all things. Found out halfway through that actually you have to be English, which was a bit of a bummer. So I couldn't do that. So instead, at the time, I had a part-time job in security at the port, and I used to run after illegal immigrants, which I thought was great, although a bit ironic, because obviously being French. I stayed in security, and I got promoted and various things. And the part of the job I actually really enjoyed was coaching and mentoring people. And being in security with teams of men, trust me, I've heard it all. It was not just professional, it was also the personal lives. And I thought, right, okay, that's something that I actually quite enjoy. Now, at the time we started, well, we didn't start, we were bought out. And I thought, no, I'm not staying. So I took redundancy and went. And I retrained as an NVQ assessor, but again, it was something that was not quite there for me. So I thought, right, career plan, career change here. What are my skills? I'm good with people, but I don't want to manage them. I throw a good old party at home, and I've got vast experience in dating. So it was quite obvious that what I should do was set up events for single people. So I founded Sophisticated Singles 18 months ago. Whilst doing that, I also did a course in Neurolinguistic Programming, which is a bit of a mouthful, NLP. And as I was hosting the events, I could see where people were going wrong and why they were single. And the course I was doing was showing me how I could help them a bit more. So I had a bit of a change of direction, and I decided to start going into coaching, as well as doing events, but concentrating on helping people, because I can organise events until I'm blue in the face. If the mindset is wrong, there's not going to be that many success stories, as it were. So that's what I started doing. Now, I must be doing something right, because I've been nominated and shortlisted for 3 categories in the UK Dating Awards, and the final is next week in London, no, not next week, 2 weeks, in London, so watch out. Anyway, we're not here to talk about me, we're here to talk about you and dating in general. So, let me just grab a sip of water. I think one of the things that people forget about dating is when you've been married a long time, or if you've been in a long-term relationship, whether you're the one who leaves or whether you are left, as it were, life is just no longer the same. There's just no two ways about it. Whether you have to change where you leave, or even if you stay there, it's a constant reminder of what was. And your friends, they're there, but they're not there, because they don't really invite you around anymore, because they're sitting on the fence. You know, they don't want to choose between you or whoever. So you're kind of on your own. And where do you go? Because if you've been with someone for a long time, how do you start? It's quite daunting out there. And there are certain things that actually are in our genes. So I need to take you back to the caves so that you can understand a bit better where we're all coming from. Now, rumour had it that man clubbed woman over the head and took her back to the cave to copulate, but that wasn't actually quite the case. There was an awful lot of, we're not dating, but you know, there was some sort of decision-making taking place. But the dating scene for a caveman was actually very limited, because they would only come into contact with about 50 people in their entire lifespan. And out of these 50 people, obviously, they're not all, you know, the other sex. Some of them are old, some are young. So it wasn't that exciting, to be fair. And yes, men were there to kill the buffalo, and they were there to show how strong they were. So it's obviously the testosterone side of things, where women were the hunter-gatherers making the home, and what the man would look at is, can she carry my offspring? Because if she can't, there's no chance of survival, I might as well not bother. And actually, some of these strays are still there nowadays. I I was having a conversation with someone this afternoon who mentioned how sometimes when he walks into a bar and if there's couples, he can see the men going all testosterone-like and, you know, the feathers are coming out, as it were. And that's, yeah, it's kind of still there. We have evolved, developed social manners and courtship, dating etiquette, poetry, and all the rest of it. But especially after World War II is when you had the major shift, because women started working in factories and became more independent. When you started getting the contraceptive pill, they were even more in power because they could actually not stay with someone because they didn't have to carry the child, as it were. And it's shifting at the moment because women are becoming more and more powerful in terms of like, they are allowed to have the bigger jobs. And some of the men are a bit more, you know, in touch with their emotional side. And nowadays you can find moisturisers for men. You didn't used to 20 years ago. And now that's what we've got. So we have speed dating, we have online dating. That's pretty much become the norm. And I think everybody can kind of relate to that in some way or another. Online dating is one of these things where I'm actually about to launch an online product, which isn't an online dating site. So I'll talk to you about that a bit later. But it's a minefield. It's just like it's got different rules and it's got a different set of everything. The main complaint is that people lie. And I guess, do they? Do we not all try? I mean, I'm on a couple for research purposes and my picture's 5 years old. And it was purely because it was the only half-decent one I had. I don't mean to, you know, I have a picture that's 5 years old, but I don't think I've changed that much. And the other criticism is that they're never quite as described. I know that personally, I've met sort of 6-foot men. They're about up here. And I'm 5'7", we easily say 5'9". Yeah, so that's one of the issues. And now it's the norm, where 20 years ago you would say don't go online because they're all weirdos. And to that effect, I will show you a little film.
There's nothing more frustrating than feeling alone or ignored. I've tried other ways to meet new people, start relationships, but it was really hard for me. Didn't really work out. People expect to be normal in social settings and shower. It just wasn't for me. Honestly, when you have to maintain 27 different World of Warcraft accounts and their various characters, it can be hard to find time to meet new people. I met Jen on Facebook.
Okay, well, we're just waiting here for Jen. She usually comes out right about now. I meet her here before she goes to work. And she's kind of late, actually. I added her as a friend on Facebook, and she accepted me without even knowing who I was. From that, I knew that we had something special. Been together for a few months now. I think it's going really well. After my last restraining order, I thought I'd never find somebody to care for again. I'm so glad the internet gave me another chance.
What is it? It's a restraining order from Jen. I know she doesn't mean it.
Now, obviously that's taking it, you know, that little bit further. It doesn't really happen like that most of the time. But the reason why I put that up is just because every now and again I think we forget, especially when we meet people in the flesh, that actually, you know, they can be dodgy too. It's not just online. I'll give you a particular example. I went out with a guy when I was 18, and it didn't work out because obviously I was in France, I was in England. And I met him again about 5 years ago. Found him on Facebook one day when I was off sick, and I added him as a friend, and that was that, starting seeing each other again. And I had to apply for an injunction against him last year. So it really does happen to anyone. I also know someone who, she'd been friends with a guy for about 6 years, and they then started going out. And I think all in all, she'd known him for about 10 years. And one day she was making the bed and she found this massive knife on the side. Now, you know, obviously she chucked it out straight away, nothing happened. And I don't say that to scare you, but you need to sometimes think about it a bit further. Because it's all well and good feeling like you know someone, but sometimes you really don't. So, on that note, sorry, but it had to be said. A number of people, when they've been single for a long time, they fall in one of many categories. And from the research I've done, I've found a lot of the time it's, I can't meet anyone. I just can't meet anyone. There's just no one there, it just isn't. There's, I can't keep a relationship for more than a few months, if at all, or I just attract the wrong kinds, you know, whatever the wrong kinds might be. And then after a while, people start questioning, you know, is it me? What's wrong with me? You know, why can't I meet somebody? And actually, it's all in the mind, in one way or another, and a lot of people have emotional baggage. Some of it they're aware of, a lot of it they're not. It's in the unconscious. And friends and family probably know about it because they can pick up on all these things, but they probably won't tell you because they don't want to offend you. And that can also lead to a bit of a confidence issue at times. I had a friend, you know, he's not the prettiest by any mean stretch of the imagination, but when he joined Match a few years back, he emailed people for 6 months and he didn't get one single message back. How did that make him feel? You know, feeling judged all the time, and it was purely on looks, and yet if people had met him in the street, they probably would have thought it was all right. So it is a very daunting, difficult process that I find people who are in long-term relationships or married sometimes, you know, either are not aware of because they've been married forever, or just don't get at all. And I know that I do a lot of networking, and whenever, you know, I stand up or whatever, I can see some people on their face, oh, there's a really dating girl there, and I'm not interested. But yet, you know, actually it should, because, and actually, well, I've got to be careful what I say here. Someone I know was pretty much like that, and actually his wife left him 3 months ago, and now he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. But there you go. You know, don't poo-poo it, because you just never know. So you've got all that emotional baggage, you've got the potential lack of confidence, and then you go on to the actual dating. So if you meet someone, be it online, not online, I know some of you will do online, some won't, just out of principle. But then, first issue is, where do you go? Because there's always like, oh, you know, if we go for dinner, not sure, because, you know, we might want to run off, and that's a bit complicated, so let's not do that. Coffee is normally a safe option. But then you've got all this, there's different kinds of dates really, isn't there? You've got the ones who are, you know, you actually quite like them and you really want to know about them. And then you've got the ones that you're not so sure, but you might as well because it's a coffee out, isn't it? And you go, and then you're normally disappointed because you actually knew to start off with that, you know, you weren't going to work. So the first date is something that's always, people ask a lot of question, what do I do? Because sometimes I just freeze and I can't be myself and I can't, you know, find the words and all the rest of it. So you've got all the nerves, that normally ends up to that, a bit of anxiety, a bit of fear, especially if you've not dated for a long time. After a while you get used to it, it kind of becomes a chore. It's like, oh, I'm going to go for a coffee, can't be bothered. And I can see someone laughing, so he's totally relating to that. The problem is that once you've had the date as well, there's a world of possibilities here. Because what to do, who texts who, you know, what happens, how do they like you, do they not, do you like them, do you not? So we start with like, if you don't like them. Because one of the questions that I'm often asked is, how do you get them down gently? Well, some people are a bit rude and they don't let you down at all because they don't contact you. And I guess that's how you get the message, but that's not great. Then you've got the ones where you're like, I'm not sure, maybe. So you then might go on the second date and see what happens, but not convinced. And then there's the ones that you actually do like, and that's where this happens. You check your phone every 20 seconds, then you put it back down again, and then you check it again, and then no, there's nothing. There must be a reasonable explanation to this. Obviously in a car crash, must start ringing the hospitals. I've nearly done that one, so I can't say anything. We're going to travel back to Cardiff, so it was 2.5 hours, you never know, it was snowing as well. And that's where, you know, people find it really difficult because literally you lose your means and you've got the sweaty palms and you're just, oh, what do I do, what do I do? So the idea is, you know, to teach you how to handle that a bit better at some point. Now, I can't remember where I'm at all, so if you excuse me, I'm just going to check my notes. That's it. I'm going to show you how not to do it. A couple of videos. No, not at all. See, I missed my notes. There's a new word that's come out. Now, about, oh, I don't know, some time ago, a few years back, I decided I'd had enough of dating, so I just didn't. And when I decided that actually, let's go back out there on the market, I need a companion, it'd be nice to get out with people. And I went speed dating. Now, if you've never done it, do it just for the sheer hang of it, because it has to be on the bucket list. It really is an experience and a half. You won't do it again, but do it once, just to say you've done it, because it is funny. But either way, I met this bloke. And I was in the category 25 to 38, I think. And it was obviously in the latter part of the category, but I actually found out it was 44. And I thought that's a bit, but his argument was he wanted kids. So if you went into the 45 to 54, it was unlikely he would get kids. So I guess I can get that either way. Someone says to me, have you had the exclusive chat? What's that? You know, you start seeing someone, that's the end of that really. But no, because online dating has brought this thing where you could be talking to 2 or 3 people at the same time, and you don't want to miss out. So it's perfectly, supposedly, acceptable to start seeing 2 or 3 people just to see where you're at. Until you've had the exclusive chat, which basically says, oh, I'm only seeing you. Doesn't mean you're in a relationship, doesn't mean anything. It just means you're only dating one person. It's just something to be aware of. I personally disagree with it. For me, I'm quite old-fashioned in that way. If you like someone, and that's that. So now that I've recovered from this one, I will show you the 2 little videos on how not to do it. They're just funny ones.
Ladies, you know, the ocean has many voices, and it's saying, why don't you 2 join this handsome gentleman for a butt laugh? All right, let's let it up. Gotta try that. Ladies, it's the ocean, and it's telling me.
Greatest move for the other, never let you down. Make it a butt light.
Yeah.
She's not good with the ladies, like you said.
All right. Try this on her. Hi, I'm Paul. We have beautiful eyes.
Hi, I'm Paul, and you have beautiful eyes.
I'd love to take you out sometime.
Love to take you out sometime.
So how much?
So how much?
Obviously, that's a bit extreme. But believe it or not, some people, it's not quite as bad as that, but really approach in some ways, and as I said, I've seen it, and properly cringed because I was just thinking, oh, bless them, you know, that's just not going to do it, really. So I'm just going to share with you 3 of the 10 most important steps of how to handle it. And I apologise if some of it seems to be just a bit of common sense, but sometimes it's just, when you've been single a long time, you kind of like lose your ways and you just need reminding of these things. And the first one's this, is to be yourself. And it's quite obvious, but actually, a lot of us don't do it. When you meet someone, you get all excited about it and you start doing stuff you wouldn't do. I'll give you a few examples. One of my customers, he likes racing cars. And whenever he gets a new girlfriend, you know, she tags along, as it were. And after 2 or 3 months, well, actually, you know, they don't like it. They just go because they go to please him because they like him and all the rest of it. But then he always ends. Or he seems to attract the wrong kinds, and he attracts people who want to go and spend all their weekends with their families. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not him. So straight away, he goes with them, but then they're actually wanting 2 different things totally. If they were honest from the start about who they are, that, you know, they wouldn't waste each other's time because that's all they're doing. You know, it's not going to work. So what's the point? I had another customer. Now, when I meet people for the first time, I normally spend an hour with them and we go through a questionnaire. And the idea is to find out through a set of specific questions and the way they ask and all the rest of it, find out what the underlying issues actually are. And I just asked her what her hobbies were. And she said, oh, I like to watch TV, but I really mustn't put that down. I said, well, why not, if that's what you like? Oh, yeah, but that sounds boring. I said, well, for a start, you're talking to me, not to anybody else here, so, you know, you're not here to impress me. But secondly, actually, if you're then going to go and be with a man who likes going outdoors and you like to watch TV, well, straight away you've got a problem, and that's why it's not working. Why don't you be honest about it, and then you can just both watch TV together? There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know. Yeah, I shouldn't watch TV anyway. Yeah, but you like it. That's how you relax. Do it. The other thing as well to bear in mind about being yourself is actually, do you know who you are deep down? Do you know what values you've got? Some time back, I was confronted with that kind of, well, yeah, it was a dilemma. I met a guy and I quite liked him. I really liked him. But basically, he couldn't handle the fact that my best friend is an ex. And we haven't been together for a year, I don't know, 10 years. To me, it just so happens we went out a few times, that's it, end off. But it was a major problem for him. So I could have done all sorts of things to ignore it, but deep down, the values were totally different. He was asking me to drop my friend to be with him. There's no way on earth I was going to do that. I'm a loyal friend. Now, I'll say no when I asked a few people. They said, I couldn't handle someone being a friend with their ex. I couldn't do it. Fine, well, it's better to part company now before it's too late. Another question to ask yourself is, how are you actually perceived by others? About a year ago, I was asked to do a little test, as it were. It was a branding thing at the time, but it was to ask 5 different people to describe me with 5 attributes, as it were. I can't quite get the word, you know, things that describe me. Someone who I'd met literally in the week, if possible. Someone I'd not spoken to for years. Someone I'd known for years. Someone I'd known but a little while, but I would consider a close friend. And then someone that was just an acquaintance. And what came back was actually quite interesting. Very interesting indeed, to see how you are perceived by others, because everybody was like, oh, you're overconfident, you're this, you're that. I wasn't at the time, I was really anxious, you know, but obviously I didn't portray that. And that's taught me that actually I need to show that if I'm anxious, I have to do it. I've got to say something, or because it is part of me as well. So it's all these little things that you can do to find out who you are so that you can then pick the right people. And it's just something that you need to just bear in mind. The next one I've got for you is opening up to opportunities. Because a lot of people say, I can't meet anyone, I never meet anyone. And actually you do all the time. but you don't see it. And it's only, you don't see it because it's not that you don't want to, you don't mean to not see it, it's just one of these things. Now, I'll give you an example. I had a bit of bad news yesterday. So there was an emergency trip to Sainsbury's to get some wine. And to change my state of mind, I thought, right, what I'm going to do, on the way up, I'm just going to smile to everybody. And I'm sure that it'll do something. So I started off, I was smiling to everybody, and the first one looked at me as if it was a bit weird. The second one thought it was probably deranged. But by the end of it, actually, I didn't have to smile. They were smiling at me first, and there were people I didn't know. And this is on the way to Sainsbury's. And where I live is not that great for people smiling at you. But I think that it just shows that actually if you change the way you're getting the vibe out, people respond to that. They totally respond to that. So you might just be going to Sainsbury's, but just by smiling randomly to people, there's loads of people you could meet or get talking to. Our example, customer, we meet in Costa. And she's a beauty therapist. She must have turned up coming out of bed, because for a beauty therapist, there was no makeup. She looked like she'd just been gardening, and it was 10 o'clock in the morning. And we're in the Costa. There were loads of men there working on the laptops. They might have not been single, but that's neither here nor there. To that respect, it's about meeting people in general. Because I found out from some study last week before, one person knows a minimum of 300 people. So if for instance I'm talking to you, and you've got 300 people there, I might not want you, or you, because you're female, and I'm not that way inclined, but you might know someone if we've got things in common. They've obviously got things in common with you, therefore I have things in common with them. And it's about not being so short-sighted. You might not fancy someone when you see them, there's no chemistry, okay, fine, but that doesn't mean you don't have to talk to them. It's who they know sometimes. I had a lady at one of these sophisticated singles events. She actually said to me, there's no one here, like, okay, that's fine, you know, it doesn't always happen. Well, yeah, but it's a singles night. I was expecting to meet someone. Okay, well, that's where you're going wrong straight off. I said, what about meeting other people to go out with and do stuff? I've got plenty of friends, love. I don't need any more. Yeah, well, good luck to you. But that's what I mean. It's that. Sometimes, don't be blinkered. Just open up the horizons. And there's another thing, and that's a big bugbear of mine. When the thing works, forget the checklist. Now, I know everybody's got one. We can have a checklist, that's fine. Later on, not at that point. Not now. There's a guy I know, he went for a date, and the woman literally actually had a checklist, and it was printed and everything, and she was making notes, right? So she's asking questions like, do you like this? And he say, yes, no, whatever. And then he asked her a question back, but she never replied to him. She just made notes. And at the end of it, she said, yeah, that's fine, you've passed the test. And he went, you haven't, and he just walked off. But I know we all like a certain type or whatever, but if it's someone's colour eyes is not quite right or whatever, but everything else is right, then surely that doesn't matter. So the checklist, yeah, we can come to that. I've got a program which is on how to attract the right person, and yes, there we use the checklist. But in general, I mean, I was on Plenty of Fish the other day. I don't know what other criteria they can come up with. You know, the star sign. The next thing is like, you know, what coffee shop they prefer or whatever. And it just literally narrows down so much who you can meet. So, my advice, forget the checklist for now. And the last one is to listen to your gut feelings. Now, that day, when I went on Facebook and I found that guy and I pressed add friends, it took me half an hour to press add friends because I was like, okay, I'm opening a massive can of worms here. I did it anyway. I knew I was going to have problems, but I did it anyway. And then along the course of the thing, I had plenty of opportunities to back out, but I didn't. And yet my gut was saying, problem coming your way big time here. And I didn't listen to it. So I think we all sometimes think, like, especially for instance, after a first date, and you think to yourself, oh, did he like me, did he not? Let's replay, you know, I said that, he said this, she said this, he said that. Actually, close your eyes and sit in a quiet room for 5 minutes. It's in there, you know the answer. Because you have picked up the vibes, and you know if someone wants to see you again or not. And if they do, they will ring you pretty sharpish anyway. So the gut feeling, sometimes people are like, not so sure, but actually you really ought to, because to a degree, I know it's not, the gut is not the mind, but it is all in the mind. And in that respect, I'll tell you a bit more about neurolinguistic programming. It's a set of techniques that are basically there to allow you to communicate better. And it's not just to a partner, a spouse, or anything like that. It's with anyone, your boss, friends, because the communication that you receive from people is what you actually give out. So if you change slightly the way you do it, then you have results. It's also about removing your limiting beliefs, because from the time we're born, we're told you can't do this, you can't do that, you put in a box. And when you get to school and you're told you can't do this, you can't do that. In my case, well, you can't sing. Okay, the sound of my own voice does offend my ears, but I'm sure that if I was interested in it and I took lessons, I could sing. But it's all these things that everybody's been putting onto you forever. And that you wake up one day and you think, I can't do this, I can't do that. You know, 6 weeks ago I could have said, I can't stand on here talking to a bunch of people I've never seen before. But sometimes you just have to believe. And using the techniques, I'm here and I've done it. So it's one of these things, it really does help you. It also helps you to attract what you want in your life. Now, I could go on forever about law of attraction and things like that, but I won't tonight. It's just absolutely phenomenal what the mind can do. So if you think it's important to you to find out more, then I can help you. And I do one-to-one coaching. The benefits of that is that we work on you and what you need sorting and how to attract the right person for you, not for anybody else, and what you believe in. I'm also quite excited. Sorry, testimonial first. Let's move on. I'm launching an online course on Wednesday, the 19th of November, and that is literally to help people at home. They can do it when they want. The benefit is that they can do it when they want, and they can learn the same sort of stuff. They can also have access to me through questions and answers and all sorts of things. And this is what will be covered. Dealing with the past, dating process, online dating, attracting the right partner, all these sort of things that a lot of people do wonder about. And if it's something that, you know, you want to look at, then you were all given a card on arrival, and there's a little link there if you want to check it out. Another testimonial. It just shows, I mean, a lot of people don't always believe in these things, but it's when they see the result that all of a sudden it becomes very clear. You can read these online, they're not important. I give you now a little gift, something for you to practice and something to break the ice once this finishes, which is very shortly. And it's something, it's called Eyes Accessing Cues. And basically, it's to communicate better. Have you ever had that feeling where you just feel like you can't get through to someone? You're trying to talk to them, but you might as well speak a different language because you're really not getting through. And actually, you might be speaking the same language, but you're not getting through at all because they're not getting you. And there's a reason for that. Some people are more visual, some people are more auditory, some people are more touchy-feely, some people only understand self-talk or corporate jargon. Depends on the job, depends what you do. Sometimes it changes. I'm normally quite visual. When I was telling people, someone about this the other day, and I asked him to do the technique on me, and I was very corporate because I was writing the course. So it's quite simple. You just ask simple questions. For instance, what did you have for lunch yesterday? Where did you go on holiday last year? And you watch where the eyes go. And depending on where the eyes go, you know how to change your language. So if you ask a question and the person goes up to the left, this is as you're looking at them. This is not, you don't need to reverse it. As you're looking at them, basically the top right, they're visual. The middle one, auditory. Bottom left is touchy-feely, and that one's a corporate one. So what you would do once you've established what someone is, you change your words. So for the top one, you say, I see where you're coming from. For the middle one, you say, I hear where you're coming from. And now it goes. For the feeling one, it's, oh yeah, I know what you mean. It's all this kind of language that you change depending on the person. And then all of a sudden, we get your message. It's very good in arguments, because that's how you get people to get your point. So try that. Now, I always put this up when I do a presentation. It's not from me. Time spent with cats is never wasted. And this is my little onion who is no longer, bless him. But remember this, it's better to be on your own, but to be with the wrong person, getting her and then going back in the circle again and again and again.